What do you think of people in terms of looking for alternatives to the dollar then, right? I get questions about, well, how will this affect crypto, gold? What do you think is going to be probably the outcome of that 1 year from now or 5 years from now? Do you think it'll really feed into uh, fueling crypto, or is that probably going to be overblown in the short term?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting. I do think you're going to start seeing government actors start, change the way that they treat some of this sort of stuff. We've already kind of seen El Salvador, which has made changes. Which there's some controversies in terms of some of the details of their treatment of Bitcoin and the coercive aspects to it. And I think all those concerns are valid. But it is interesting that you now have nations, actively trying to court investment for trying to empower and normalize the use of Bitcoin transactions within day-to-day lives of residents. And I think that's something where you have this dynamic where, again, I think that the headwinds that the global economy is having, particularly nations that aren't the U.S. Again, the euro in particular, where you have a banking system that has been dealing with negative interest rates for a very long time now. There's concerns out there about the amount of exposure that they have to Russian firms, which may create issues. I know there's been a lot of concerns about the quality of their debt with Chinese companies and things like that. If you have a crisis within the euro, one of the benefactors of that is going to be dollars, right? As being the traditional safe haven asset there. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if you start seeing Bitcoin in particular being embraced by more countries within a pinch. There's been investment made in a variety of ways of other sort of crypto schemes, and I think a lot of valid concern about the dangers posed by some of these other sort of digital monies and the ways that those could be tracked by their central banks, and the degree to which we might be setting up, kind of new tools to be used in sort of the authoritarian sort of surveillance wing of the state. I'm also interested to see, so again, how state actors respond, and I think that you will start seeing, more activity, with in some of these areas. I'm also just interested to see it on a domestic sphere, where are you going to start seeing a state like Texas, for example, which has its own state depository bank. Do you see a scenario where an inflationary environment leads to Texas to start buying gold rather than U.S. securities or cash holdings and things like that? Again, Texas is something that's particularly set up for gold in particular. We've already seen progress made within Wyoming in the way that it is treated Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. We've seen within the state of Florida, more at a local level, the city of Miami now receives taxes in Bitcoin and holds Bitcoin and has its own sort of crypto ambitions there. My own county, actually, you can now pay your taxes in Bitcoin using some of their kiosks. So again, we're seeing that being adopted just within, by various governing entities. That it wouldn't surprise me if you start seeing that sort of progress continue. And as you see attempts by various nationalist right-wing leaders trying to offer an alternative to this, the current status quo politically, I'm very interested to see whether they start taking seriously the possibility for Bitcoin and these alternative fintechs, and providing not only a political solution that might help for savings of their citizens, but also dealing with some of the censorship concerns that we've seen played out with the way that Canada weaponized its banking system against the truckers, the way America has dealt with certain sort of right-wing figures within the U.S. And so it's this dynamic where domestic tensions coupled with international instability may lead to a broader, populist appreciation that translates within policy. And that's the other side of it, is that, when you have as a consequence of the economic fallout of this conflict, and all the stresses that are being placed on working class citizens all around the world at this point, what does this mean when you have presidential elections going on in France? What does this mean in Germany? What does this mean again, obviously with the 2022 elections, but perhaps even in 2024? Again, if Trump is the opponent, is the Republican candidate there, and Americans are materially worse off, it's going to be very, I think it's going to be a very effective line on, hey, don't you wish it was 2019 again? And here you have a nostalgic offering for the president who's in charge there. If the political fallout of this creates a broad transition within the West that you didn't really see under Trump, right? You had Trump versus NATO, the NATO status quo, even Boris Johnson kind of ended up being more European than the Trump ally that maybe some of them thought. If you see a blanket change within the West as a byproduct and a backlash of all of this, it will be interesting then to see, what might come about when when it comes to dealing with the consequences of everything that's gone on, with COVID and Ukraine and also larger issues of, a decade plus of slow growth, and a variety of issues there as well. So, it is I remember all the people that were excited about turning the page after 2020, thinking that, we're going to get back to normal after this past year of COVID. It just seems like one thing after another. The Roaring '20s, maybe bringing all sorts of will continue to bring interesting things going forward.